Good morning, friends, wherever you are, and welcome to today's Cichlids and Coffee. I hope wherever you are, you're having a great day and that it continues to get even better for you. I appreciate you showing up, spending a little bit of your Saturday with me. And we have some VIPs already in the house. Denny. Hey, Denny. AV is good. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. And Whip's World. Hey, Whip. Good to see you there, buddy. Your Red Terror is behind me and living the life. More on that later. Tammy Harper in the house. Hello from South Mississippi. Hello, Tammy. I hope you're having some good weather down there. It is raining here in Nashville. I love the rain, so no big deal for me, but it's pretty wet. Adam Frankel in the house. Hey, Paul. Paul's here too, along with Adam. And let's see who else we got here. GP. Hey, buddy. Good to see you. Angelo's in the house. Z-Zip. Michael Lornero. Cat Sailor. Melissa. Hey, Melissa. Good morning to you. Hey, Brian. Buenos dias, Brian. Doesn't seem like I haven't seen you in a while. Have you not been around recently, Brian? Good to see you today. Peas and Haps Forever in the house. All right. John Yancey. Using the Dr. Novak's anoxic method. One of these days, I will I'll look into that. It all makes sense, but it's never been a direction I've gone into. David Sanger in the house. I know this isn't about fish, but I got a Chinese water dragon. I'm not sure what a Chinese water dragon is. I think of Mushu, that little dragon in that Disney cartoon. That's what I think of when I hear Chinese water dragon. So let's go ahead and do the official start to today's live stream. Here we go. Very good. I have a lap for you today, a lap of the fish room, and take a look at what's been going on around here. Never a dull moment in the fish room, as you might imagine. I'm sitting here next to my big boys. I would say that these South Americans are comparable, if not larger, than on average, the African cichlids are bigger, but I think some of the bigger beasts in here, like the Oscar, have surpassed the African cichlids just in sheer mass, sheer size. And of course, they're just big water puppies. Even this vieja has become a bit more, he used to always run to the back. And even he's become a bit friendlier. Let me adjust the angle so you can see him a little better. Give you a little more fish. You can see the bobblehead there. My mascot, the bobblehead. And let me adjust this one light so it's not flashing on the aquarium and giving you a silhouette of my head. All right, that's a little better. Let me do one thing here. Don't get seasick. I'm going to adjust the your view here. There we go. That's a little better, I think. All right. So we have an interesting topic today. I'm going to talk. Well, it's one of my favorite topics. I think it's one of your favorites too. Is the having to do with that whole concept of filtration and tank pollution, and really just creating the best possible environment for our fish. And it's just a topic I enjoy getting into, and I'll talk about it, and then I certainly want to hear from you. I want to hear your take on it in the chat as we go along. Certainly, any questions you have, anything you want to add to the discussion. A big shout out to my moderators who really kind of help the chat go along and look up links and do all that kind of good stuff, and keep the chat family friendly. Big shout out to my wonderful moderator, best moderators on YouTube. I believe that to be true. And also a big shout out to those of you who participate in the monthly Patreon program. This is a way of supporting the channel. Starts for as little as $3 a month. Details are in the description under the video. We've had some recent addition to the Patreons. Very, very grateful for that. And it really helps me to handle the day in and day out things like running off and getting some plans for a project, things like that, that I then document and turn into videos for you folks. So even though it might not sound like a lot, well, gee, $3 a month, what can that do? Well, it really adds up. And then some of you in there are 20 or more a month. So you're very, very appreciated. Just want to make that very clear in case you were wondering. And I keep getting emails from folks telling me about the mug and the t-shirt and the this and that they bought. If you want to go to Teespring, there is the Teespring logo where you'll find t-shirts, mugs, hoodies. Of course, hoodies are kind of crazy this time of year. But all kinds of goodies down there. Channel swag at the Teespring store. Check it out if you're inclined to. And if you shop on Amazon, use amazon.com/ben.o.cichlid, all one word. And that will get you. So it's amazon.com/shop/ben.o.cichlid. And that'll take you to my Amazon store. Now, if you then bounce out of that and buy something from Amazon, anywhere in Amazon, it helps the channel because you got there using my link. Kind of a cool, it's kind of like the Aquarium Co-op affiliate link. If you use my affiliate link to get to Aquarium Co-op, anything you buy at Aquarium Co-op gives the channel a little bit of credit. So there are lots of ways to help the channel besides just throwing a super chat at me, which are always very, very grateful. Today, we will give away, like we did last week, if you super chat and you're in the United States for shipping purposes, and your super chat is $15, so at least we can cover the shipping and the postage, I will send you some Sarah high-quality fish food. Any super chat over $15. Okay, enough paying of the bills. Now, what do you want to do first? Do you want the do you want to do the lap of the fish room first, or do you want to talk about our subject first? What would you like to do? Let me check out your comments here. Let's see who's chatting. Who's chatting today? Tammy Harper in the house. You have a heat wave down there, and yeah, that's hot and humid is not a good combination. Sunny in New Jersey. That's good. I've been in New Jersey many times. Teaneck, had a good friend in Teaneck, New Jersey. John Dusty Rhodes in the house. Hello from the UK. It's raining here too. Maybe we should all invest in lifeboats and pontoons. Andy in the house. Good morning, y'all. 1 month until winter in Canada. You folks know winter up there. We get an occasional snow dusting here in Nashville, but not like you get in Canada. Lady Diane in the house. Good to see you. And R. Baglio has joined us. Cruise Aquatics. Great name, Cruise Aquatics. Love that name. Thank you for joining us today, Cruise. It's nice and sunny. Hey, GP, that's right. You're in New Jersey. David says that a Chinese water dragon is a type of, and I imagine that's a lizard or possibly some type of reptile that gets 3 feet long. That's awesome. A little scary, but awesome. Very, very cool. They have here in Nashville, they just opened up the Komodo dragon exhibit at the zoo. And those creatures are a little scary. A little scary. All right. Let's see here. Michael Harris in the house. Hey, man, good to see you. Actually got to join live for the second time. Sorry, it's hard to find time. Hey, no need to apologize. 117 in Arizona. My goodness. Arizona does get hot. You're in the desert. Thank you for sharing those links, Cichlid King. Cat Sailor says, always up for the lap. I'm getting a lot of folks saying lap. Lap. Give me an L. Lap. Liquid Zoo. Only fins. The little arm floaties work too. Yep, that's true, but sometimes they slip off. You're talking to a father of 4 who went through a lot of water wings. All right, let's see here. Free swimmer in the house. Hello to you, my friend. Waynard Wolverines also here. And M&C Aquatics. A month of triple digits. My goodness. Kimberly's in hot, sunny Florida. And, of course, you do get a lot of humidity down there. My son lives in Fort Myers now. To Mars. Are you kidding? We don't get snow in Canada. To Mars. You must stay inside, I think. Finsanity. What a great name. Finsanity Aquatics. 6 inches of snow in Buffalo, New York. Are you serious? Or is that like, that's nuts. Crazy, crazy weather. All right. It looks like the Arizona broke their own record for heat this summer. Crazy. Yeah. All right. Well, let's do this. It seems like the consensus is leaning in the direction of the lap. So let's go ahead and spin up a lap of the fish room, and feel free to comment during the lap, and I will go back and pick up your comments and maybe even jump in the comments during the lap. So here we go. Your first look at this week's lap of the fish room, and the advantage, of course, is that you get it without any commercials. Commercial free. I think when it finally gets posted, it has probably four commercial breaks in it, which isn't, I guess, a lot, but maybe 3. I hate a lot of commercials. All right, here we go. Hello, friends. Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's take a quick look at the fish room to get a quick update on everything that's been going on around here. Be sure to share your thoughts, tips, and comments below. Always appreciated. And let's go ahead and jump right into it. We'll start here with this beautiful red tear in the 55-gallon. He is doing marvelous. Seems to be happy in the 55. I'm sure when he puts on more size, he might find it a little cramped. But for right now, he's looking good, eating really well, showing great color. Don't think I'll put him back in the 210. It was just a little bit too disruptive. But he's loving life. Over here in the 55-gallon planted tank, seeing a lot of success with the plants and the fish. They're all doing very, very well. I added some new plants here. Some plants are sent from my friend in Puerto Rico. Also some I picked up at the local fish store. And the rest of these plants are, of course, from the aquarium co-op, as is the light and the heater you see in the back there. There's my pack of neons. We got some new growth coming out of the anubias, which is a good sign. Usually I pull the top light forward. I'll show you. I'll usually pull it forward like this. And what that does is it'll put the anubias to some degree in a little bit of shade. And that way it doesn't get so much direct light. It does better in lower light. There's the electric blue Ochart, red serpa, lemon tetras, red-tailed rasboras, rummy nose, the more dominant or more colorful electric blue Ochart, some of your more standard rasboras. Are these pork chop or harlequin? I have some cherry barbs in here. I tend to avoid barbs because they tend to be a little nippy, but these cherry barbs were brought over from an old project over a year ago in an 8-gallon tank from Higer. There's even a little ember back there. I'm gonna get them a tank mate. The autos are doing great. You can see a couple of them on the back there. See if I can open up the light a little bit and show them to you. They're hanging on the back wall there. As you probably know, I'm going through some treatments with this 90-gallon. They just had a paracleanse feeding. So you see a little bit of it floating in the water column. But I'm treating the tank to stop and fix the small pits that are appearing on the forehead of the Geophagus, Surimanensis, and the AC Heckelii. The Buenos Aires tetras are doing great. The 2 severums are doing great. If you saw the video on medicating this tank, you know that I'm using a regimen of meds, and I'm medicating their food with some paracleanse. I'll turn the light on so you can see it better. I'm using paracleanse, Fritz paracleanse, also a little bit of ACCR water conditioner, a little bit of focus when I put it in their food, and I'm using some of these extreme pellets, which are sinking pellets and real easy to work with medication. So these are the extreme peewee pellets. This paracleanse has your Metro and your Prazi, right? Your Prazi Quantel and your metronidazole. And so those are 2 recommended medications for a hole in the head. So stay tuned for an ongoing update on how this is progressing. The fish are active, they're eating well, they've got good color, good fin displays. They don't seem ill, and these pits have been slowly progressing for probably a year now. But I finally decided, okay, let's just go ahead and deal with it. As you can see, they're sifting like crazy just because of the recent feeding. That food was soaked with a little bit of paracleanse. There's the red shoulder. Let's go behind this tank, and this is just a 29-gallon hospital quarantine tank. Nothing new to report here. I have a nice little pleco in here that's always building a little pit in front of this cave. I'm thinking he might be looking to breed. Always fanning. We'll see. Maybe I'll breed some plecos. Got some almond leaves in here. Great assortment of pagoda snails. And there's a Siamese algae eater living in here, nice and fat from the wafers and the cucumber that I feed him. Here's the live bear tank. It's doing very, very well. There's some new plants that I added from the local fish store. Got a nano sponge filter back there from the aquarium co-op. And the fish are active, healthy, happy. See, there's a little pleco in here too, and a few cory cats. Some water sprite. There's usually a little teeny, 1 or 2 teeny babies hiding in there. Lots of color. I noticed that one of the Mickey Mouse platies is going very orange and red, and I'm getting some offspring. Like this one here was born in the tank. So I'm getting some very red Mickey Mouse platies. Very, very pretty. And here's a project I talked about in a recent video. This is the new Betta penthouse. And I think he's loving life. He's got some, a little bit of Java fern, which is attached to this piece of driftwood here. In the initial video, I put it in the substrate, and several of you were quick to point out that that's not how you add Java fern. I've only used Java fern 1,000 times, but for some reason, a total brain fart, I put it in the substrate. But it was a quick recovery, and now it's attached to this piece of driftwood. There's also some Anubias, and some of the plants I brought over from the local fish store, along with a red floating lily of some kind. Somebody mentioned that it's a floating banana lily. I'm not entirely sure if you identify this plant that's floating right here, let me know. The folks at the fish store did not know. And of course there's a little bit of water sprite in here. And a little betta log was added. Well, I haven't seen him use the betta log yet. So I'm very anxious to see him get in there. This tank also has an aquarium co-op, in this case a 100-watt heater. In the very back there. Sure if you can make it out with the light. What I like about these heaters is that they give you a real clear digital readout. And I'm using the small sponge filters, 2 of them, and one of those aquarium co-op dual outlet battery backup pumps. So if I ever have a power outage, I don't have to worry. That pump will keep running for a couple days. Even though betta they come up to the surface and gulp air. Labyrinth, is that what you call it? So this would be the fish I'd worry the least about in the event of a power outage. But I do have battery powered pumps on every one of my tanks, as well as some very big uninterrupted power supply UPS units. There's some green algae growing on the sides here. I'm going to leave it alone. I got a couple little plecos in here. They can have it as a treat. I'll keep the front panel clean, but leave the green algae on the sides for the plecos. I don't mind green algae on the sides and back. Don't like it on the front. Let's go over here to the 300-gallon aquarium. This is the long view. Seven feet across. everybody is in here doing, everybody in here is doing great, but the Malawi trout is calmed down right now. When he gets dark on the bottom of his body and his anal fin, that's when trouble's brewing. It's called a Kawingi. It's a bicolor 500. Tangerine tiger. A Malawi hawk. Sand diver. There's a turquoise hap. A Venusus that's primarily yellow is getting a little blue on the cheeks. Strigatus, first cousin of the eye biter, like an eye biter without the crazy head. There's the Fusco. He's just turning into a tank. You can see him in the back there. Just a beast. Bucochromis rhodesii yellow, another beast. Very fast growing, like the Fusco. The rest of these fish have been sort of moderate growers. Nobody's really like blown up. But except that Fusco, boy, that Fusco, I think he's a F1, one generation removed from the lake. Grew like a weed. There's the Malawi gar. Crazy looking fish back there with the big lips. Here's the tank that recently some of you have said it's your favorite tank. Certainly has a great assortment of fish. Salvini, little Jack Dempsey back there, some silver dollars, schooling around, green tear, my picky eater, some chocolate cichlids who change color every hour, big beautiful Oscars, giant vieja. They sometimes will bump heads, but for the most part they get along. It's my albino Oscar. Was very stressed out when the red terror was in here, as was the red tiger. He was tormenting them. Here's the firemouth looking for the Nicaragua. Here's the Nicaragua. Absolutely beautiful colors on that fish. Oh, there they go. Always face off. Never fight or lock lips or anything, but always facing off with each other. The chocolates are also getting harassed by the red tear, and they've really bounced back. It amazed me how fast the fins healed. So there you have it. That's what's been going on around here in every tank, and certainly never a dull moment here in the fish room. Please be sure to share your tips and comments below. I do read them. I do take them to heart, as you know, and I hope to see you on Saturday at the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. That's every Saturday at 11 a.m. Central, 9 Pacific, noon Eastern. And if you'd like to support the channel, hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, the thumbs up, and that really helps out a lot. And if you want to help further, consider becoming a member of the Garage Gang, a Patreon monthly supporter. Starts for as little as $3 a month. Very, very appreciated and helps out way more than you know. Thank you, my friends. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. There you go. The first viewing of this week's Fish Room Lap. I hope you enjoyed that. And that will be made public probably this afternoon or tomorrow morning at the latest. I'm supposed to go to the zoo right after today's live stream with my granddaughter, but I don't think we're going to be making it because of the rain, but we'll see. We'll see. A couple questions that came up here during the lap. I'll go ahead and address them. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them now before we get into our topic of the day. Let's see. I'm cruising the chat. Vara Nidgai? Is that, am I saying that right? Yeah, CK Fish World is really cool, and I think after I think I went there twice and filmed 2 videos at CK Fish World over in California, and the first one was the older shop, and then I think they did a reno. They did a complete reno. Really cool shop. Let's see here. You know, Whip's World, I get it on the meds. These meds are can be hard on the fish a little bit. You know, I lost one of the one of the tetras. All the other fish are doing okay, and that tetra, I don't know, might have died anyway. I mean, I don't know, but one of the tetras turned over. Everybody else is doing okay, but you know, antibiotic against life. Antibiotics can be rough. So I understand the reluctance of getting into antibiotics, and I certainly was reluctant, but I wasn't seeing any change. And again, I might have been just a little impatient and didn't give it enough time. But at any rate, fingers crossed on that. Today was the last day of treatment, and then I think day after tomorrow, I think I do a water change. And then I'll just keep a good eye on it. I'll turn the that 24-watt UV sterilizer. I'll turn that thing back on, and boy, it had the water looking really crisp there for a few days, and then we'll go from there. All right, Vibes Aquatics asking for thumbs up. Thank you, buddy. Cichlid Kings, you like that upgrade to for the Dumbo? He's loving it. I mean, I'm looking at him from here. He's all over that tank, and he's resting up in the Sprite. Hasn't gotten into the log yet, and but he's got it good in there, and plays in the entire tank, down to the bottom, up to the top. We got 2 plecos on the front glass now, and he's kind of playing tag with them, but anyway, he's a very cute fish. I really like him. Paul, you should get a betta. Paul Newman. I think a betta is fun, and they come in so many crazy colors. Let's see here. Saline Aquatics working hard on call. Cruising through the chat. Thank you for that super chat. I did get one little super chat there. Thank you for that. I don't know. It looks like I think the consensus is we have a I think that the votes go for the arowana on jumper as a jumper, but I know the king of DIY, I think Joey, he lost a beautiful arowana, and I think he had 2 that he lost almost at the same time, an arowana, and I think it was some type of an eel, and they both jumped out, and he found them dried up on the floor, and it's a horrible way to go. You know, one of the things when you're a YouTuber and you know things like that happen, I know we had that other fellow who's for some reason just lost a bunch of his rays, and it's just terrible. You know, when here you are, you're on a public forum. You're, like I like to say, you're in an aquarium. You keep aquariums, but you're in an aquarium if you're a YouTuber, and you know, you end up having a major setback, and then you got to just put it out there, and it almost compounds the pain of the experience. You know, it's like when you've suffered some kind of a personal loss and you're sort of dealing with it, and then when you go to tell somebody about it, you get all emotional. It's almost like it kind of like drags it out of you. I don't know, but at any rate, it's rough. Yeah, caveman Aquatics lost his rays, 3 beautiful rays. Felt bad for the guy. I think he added them, and I think he went away for a weekend or something, and something happened. So there was a power outage of some kind, and of course now, I think his most recent video is talking about the power backups, and you know, it's amazing how expensive and painful some of these lessons are. But if you have fish like that, I mean, rays can go what, $150 or more. If you have a pair, you can have a pair of rays that are producing offspring. I mean, a pair will cost $400, $500, $600. Anyway, you think you would? I would definitely consider having monitoring apps that alert my phone, inline power backups that kick in automatically. You know, things like that. But you know, hindsight's always 20/20, and that's how a lot of us learn. And very often the lessons are very, very, very painful. Cichlid King, upwards of $1,500. Wow. Yeah. That's a big hit. Saline Aquatics, I never get attached to my fish that way. I'm bummed. But it's not like a dog or a cat. Yeah, I'll tell you, a dog or a cat. Dog or cats are rough, man. I remember having to put down one of my beagles a while back. I've had several beagles over the years, and this one beagle was just really struggling, and I had to put him down. Boy, that was rough. A little rough. I'll be honest. So let's get into today's topic, and as usual, I have some notes. A little notepad from Seahorse Aquarium in Ireland. And the topic, of course, today is filtration and how it relates to waste and nitrates, aquarium pollution, things of that nature. And this is a interesting topic, and it's got a lot of angles to it. I mean, ideally, we want the best water for our fish. And a lot of us think that if we have large amounts of filtration on the aquarium, that will ensure that. But I think we all know, everybody on this live stream knows that filters run water over good bacteria, which allows the bacteria to do its thing, right? And convert that ammonia into nitrite, and then another type of bacteria converts the nitrite into nitrate. But that waste is not out of your aquarium. Now, it's just out of sight. And because so if you put a lot of filtration on your tank, is your tank any less or any cleaner than with less filtration? are you just hiding the detritus in an out of sight compartment? Now, some people will argue that, or not even argue, just point out that waste, fish waste, food, things of this nature, are will become neutral after a certain amount of time. Now, in other words, they don't continue to become more and more toxic. If that was the case, if waste became progressively more toxic over time, you wouldn't be able to have a sump filter running for 6 months, 9 months, a year without a major cleaning. Canister running for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. You wouldn't be able to have those filters running that way if these things became, if fish poop and food and things like that continued to become more and more toxic as they accumulated and over time. So the theory is that there's a drop off. There's a drop off in the pollution potential of these things, and then of course you're always adding to it, but you're adding to it in measured amounts depending on how much you're feeding and your stock load, right? How stocked you are. And of course that increases over time as your fish put on size and you feed more, right? And that's going to increase over time. But after a certain amount of time, the toxicity potential of what is in your filters starts to become benign or neutral. Now, have you heard about that? Do you think that's true? Or do you think that that's false? And if so, what are you basing it on? Are you basing it on anecdotal observation, something you've observed or seen? Are you basing it on a paper, a scientific paper that you read? I'd be curious what your thoughts are about that. And it kind of takes us into the idea that very clean looking water, pristine, floating in air types of aquariums are not always healthy. Not always healthy aquariums. Might not be healthy aquariums. Might be very toxic because the pollution and the toxic elements are being hid off to the side and out of view in something like a canister, right? I mean, if toxicity over time, if pollution potential, I've coined a phrase now, pollution potential. Now, when I talk to people about fish food, what's the pollution potential of that fish food? Over time, if it were to become more toxic, have greater pollution, then I would make a case for hang-on back filters. Not even so much sponge filters, because sponge is right there in the aquarium and you really can't help but have some of it break off. Even when you wrap it in a bag, some of it's going to break off and go back into the tank when you pull them out. So probably if that was the case, if pollution was accumulating and toxicity was increasing, your best bet would be a hang-on back filter, which would allow you to do frequent servicing of media. And we probably wouldn't have, if that was truly the case, the accumulation of waste becoming more and more toxic. We wouldn't have things like canister filters and sumps, which can be circulating water for tremendous amounts of time and not get serviced, and yet your fish remain in perfect health. And as a matter of fact, there's a school of thought out there that leaves them alone. And when they do clean them, they clean them very, very lightly because they consider the stuff that's in those filters as something very, very good. And they leave the mulm alone. They leave they actually like the gunk that's in there because they say it actually is the nutritious environment that the beneficial bacteria lives in. So now we also get into the case of nitrate safety levels. Like, what are the? I mean, you can research out there, especially if you go into the food industry, like like fish farms and things, and you'll find articles that say nitrates at 1,000 parts per million was not impacting necessarily the fish. Then you get into the breeding, people that breed fish, and certainly into the reef keepers, where the level of nitrates are very crucial. They consider that to be crucial. For example, I've heard that if you're breeding discus, your nitrates have to be very close to zero. Is that a wives' tale? Is that a urban legend, or is there something to that? So a lot of moving parts in this discussion. I want to hear what you have to say in the comments about these points. I mean, what do you think? I mean, let's take a look here. So we look at filtration, waste, nitrates, and pollution. The best filters, of course, would be the hang-on back with easy access to. But if waste does become neutral over time, does it matter? And in fact, would that make sumps and canisters the superior filter option? So again, interesting points. Without even getting into types of media, your ceramic medias, your biohomes, your sponges, your scrub pads, right? Things that people use for media. That's a whole topic for a whole different subject. Now, one thing I will say that is that I have found works for me, and I feel this way, is the use of pre-filters. Now, one of the reasons I like it is because it holds on to waste until it becomes pretty much pulverized, until it becomes kind of powder, and then that is then drawn through. But it also gives you an opportunity to pull the pre-filters off and rinse and replace. And so now you get the convenience and benefit that you have in the easy access of a hang-on back. Now you get that type of ease with a canister, because you can just simply pull off that pre-filter, right? Rinse it and put it back on, and you've captured a lot of the waste that would have normally gone into the canister, and a lot of the food that would have gone into and just rotted and polluted inside the canister gets pecked off by the fish. They eat off the sponges. I've seen them do it many times. And certainly if you have cories and plecos on a pre-filter, they work those sponges a lot. They work the pre-filters a lot. So there's a very strong case for pre-filters, and that would give you a very good safeguard against any type of pollution over time or toxicity increasing over time issue in a canister. I know with canisters, I've been able to extend out servicing to 9 months with the use of pre-filters. Am I seeing more toxicity in the aquarium? No, I'm not. And the truth is I wasn't seeing more toxicity in long periods with hang-on back filters before I put pre-filters on. So, and again, I'm not referring to any science. I'm referring to my observation, is that I've concluded, based on my personal anecdotal observation, that over time, the things that accumulate in a filter will neutralize. And so what that brings it down to is that your biggest reason for getting in there and servicing canisters and sumps is really to clear up blockage. The blockage that might be preventing it from turning over the water and removing, the floating particles with as much turnover as you would like. In my case, I like the sweet spot of being 5 to 10 times the aquarium volume per hour. So the reason then becomes unblocking the media. That becomes the primary reason, not toxicity or pollution. If in fact those the things that are in there are becoming, again, neutral, benign, non-toxic. So a great, just a very interesting thing to kind of throw around, and certainly makes a case for different kinds of filters. But I think really, if you look at it, probably a more serious concern than a buildup in a filter would be setting up an aquarium in a way that could result in a non-optimum hardness, right? Or a pH shift, Now, I've heard one way to really stabilize your pH is to ensure that you do have some minerals in that water. That makes a case for water changes, which remineralize the aquarium. Also, adding something like adding a little bit of crushed coral, even to your tanks that have a lower, like 7, 6, 5. Even the fish that prefer maybe a more neutral pH, adding a little bit of crushed coral can help stabilize the situation, stabilize the matters. I have something I'm going to be adding. I have crushed coral in my sumps, and also I've added to the aquariums, but I picked up some of this. Here, I'll show you. This is from the Aquarium Co-op. You can get it. You can get it at most fish stores will carry it, and increases KH to buffer pH, but also adds hardness to the water. Can raise pH. I haven't found that crushed coral in my case. Adding crushed coral, I haven't seen. I mean, the substrate in the 300 is crushed coral and aragonite, and I have crushed coral in the sump, and I don't see a real high. I see 7.8, 7.8, maybe 7.7. I don't see a real high pH, and those fish would probably be a little more comfortable in 8, pH of 8. But you can pick up. This is something from the Aquarium Co-op, and you add a little bit of crushed coral. You rinse it out, get all the dust out of it, because boy, is it dusty. And you just add it to the aquarium, and it'll add some minerals that are great for the fish, and it makes it less likely that you're going to have a pH, some kind of a pH crash, which can occur in the in an aquarium where there's a lack of mineralization. Cat Sailor, I use the large size. It's large. I use the biggest size they sell. And what I did is I removed the grill of the FX6. I drilled a few holes in the pipe, right? And then the pressure from the filter holds the sponge in place. If you don't do that, you're probably going to need some type of an adapter, because the hole is a little bit big. It's a little bit too big, and if you turn the filter off, there's a chance it might slide off the pipe. But I had a Sun canister where I had some extra hose, and I just cut a couple pieces and cut them up the side and wrapped them around the pipe, so it made the pipe a little bit thicker at the top, and that would hold the sponge in place. I haven't been doing that recently. Just the pressure of the FX6 holds it in place. So the largest sponge they sell, and that seems to work. But I am a very big proponent of pre-filters. Yep. This is homemade pink lemonade. Very delicious on days like today. Let's take a look at some of your comments. See what's happening here on the chat. If you have any questions, throw them at me now. I'm gonna cruise the chat, which means I might be picking up questions that aren't showing on the screen. Finn Golfin, I have never had an albino. I have never had an albino eye biter. And yes, they are pretty. They are pretty. And yes, they are aggressive. I think albinos are crazy. Fortunately, this Oscar in here, this Oscar albino, is very mellow and kind of kept in check by the bigger fish. But I have found albinos to be to have a little bit of a nutcase going on. In my experience. Now, if you want to look at something crazy, check out an OB eye biter. An OB eye biter. Absolutely gorgeous. They are, it's like somebody took an eye biter and just splashed them with a bunch of paint. Browns and yellows and blues, and they're just crazy looking. OB eye biter. And I'm sure that I'm sure they're a little crazy too, since OBs are a hybrid, right? OB eye biter. Boy, I saw one. Boy, that was a beautiful fish. I was this close to buying them. Oh man, no. Saline Aquatics. If I was able to spend thousands on fish, you best believe I would be spending thousands on proper power and battery systems first. Yeah, it's almost like putting the foundation of your house. And I think a lot of us end up doing it in hindsight. In other words, something happens, the old closing the barn after the horse has gotten out, closing the barn door after the horse has left. We learn the hard lesson. And then we invest. In the it's a little bit backwards, but that's how we move along. And let's face it, some of us get into the hobby with a small tank and a few fish. The investment is not that big. And then we start getting bigger tanks, perhaps more exotic, more expensive fish, and we stay with the same pattern. We keep doing things the way we've always been doing them. And so we just don't think of it. It's just how we keep fish. And then one day you have the big crash and you go, boy, I think I need power backup. Cichlid Kings happens to the best of us. Just lost $400 worth of haps that were in the first week of quarantine. Whoa. Well, Cichlid Kings, I hope the store that sold you those fish gave you some help with that. Saline Aquatics, I did a video on the subject, I guess, multiple filters. Yeah, you're going to have, we've talked about this before, you're going to have the amount of beneficial bacteria that you can support. And depending on how much you're feeding and your stock, you're not going to have more beneficial bacteria than can stay alive in your existing aquarium. So if you have 10 filters or one filter, the beneficial bacteria is going to populate the way it's going to populate. And I like to think that I have a lot of beneficial bacteria living in this deep substrate that goes between 4 and 6 inches, depending where you're looking at the tank. I like to think that's where a lot of my beneficial bacteria is, but I'm sure there's a lot in the sump, in the canister, on the rocks, on the wood. It's everywhere. But if I added 2 more canisters and 2 hang-on backs to this aquarium, I wouldn't get more beneficial bacteria necessarily, because it's not going to exceed the amount of ammonia that these fish are producing. That's going to be the top end. All right, let's see here. Ron, I hope you're feeling better. Ron had an accident and broke some fingers. Ouch. And you don't realize how much you use them until you can't use them. Joshua, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Loves the content. I appreciate you saying that. M&C Aquatics, no sump or canisters here. Laughing out loud. I have 1 tank that's 5 years old, never gravel vac, HOB cleaned every 6 months, and most stable tank I have. Well, see, there you go. You can make a case for that T-shirt that I sell at Teespring, for success, mess less. Because you start to develop this stability, this bulletproof tank that has this great gunk underneath the substrate and this mulm and basically a living ecosystem. And then we go in there and we disrupt it with deep vacuuming and scrubbing out the sponges and then we wonder why the next morning all the fish are gasping. So yeah. And you get extreme examples of that. I mean, you look at Father Fish. I mean, he says a fish dies, shove them under the substrate. Don't take them out. Of course, when you have, I mean, if one of my Oscars died, I mean, that would be like, I'd have like a graveyard, right? I have it a forest lawn. So I'm not likely to do that with a 10-inch, 2-pound fish. But just an interesting concept. A little Tetra dies in one of his lightly stocked, heavily planted tanks, just pushes it into the substrate. Would you do that? Is that something you would do? I'd be curious. Tell me in the chat. Terry, can liquid plant food lower the pH? Well, if somebody here knows definitively for Terry, can liquid plant food lower pH? Let's take a look at that. Let me switch screens here. I'll just pin that. If you know about that, let me know. I of course use I use the Easy Green. I use the liquid from the Aquarium Co-op, and I use the root tabs. I put root tabs. Damon DeFranco, discus are just hard to keep alive. There are a lot of folks that would agree with you on that. I kept discus before I switched to African cichlids. Just before I started my channel, I was keeping discus. And you're right. I mean, they were very finicky, very hard. They were not an easy fish to keep. I think, though, in the long run, my 90-gallon could turn out to be a good discus tank, especially with that UV, that 24-watt UV in there. The fact that it's a very established tank, and we'll see. I was thinking of possibly reaching out to Lisa over at Super Cichlids. Maybe we can do some type of a discus collab. I know she's gotten really big on discus. Lisa, if you're out there, give me a call. Send me an email. M&C Aquatics is talking about somebody named Dan who is keeping discus with nitrates over 100. Wow. Now, are they breeding? Are they pairing up and breeding? That'd be the interesting question. Which means that because breeding is a sign that conditions like fish simply don't seem to breed. I imagine some do, but they don't seem to breed in non-optimum conditions. At least that's been what I've heard. Now, this is interesting. Michael's talking about how the numbers in our test kits are 1/4 the actual amount a fish can tolerate. I put a video out a while back. I think it was called Beneficial Bacteria. Where is it really? And then there was another one that I put out that had to do with are we being scared as fish keepers? Are we being scared into buying more and more water conditioning products for a situation that might not actually be that dangerous? So it's kind of an interesting topic. Robert Egan, that Oscar is growing. The Oscar has gone nuts in growth. I mean, when I first got him, he was the size of the firemouth. Not sure if you can see the firemouth. Maybe a little bigger than this Jack Dempsey. Or the size, maybe a little smaller than the South Vinny. That's how big. And they both were the same size. The albino and the red tiger were the same size. And for some reason, the albino is a beautiful fish, but he's a little stunted by comparison. Now, that might work out well in the future in that the larger red tiger is not going to see that albino as a threat in any way and probably will not necessarily be going after him. Brian Hahn is using 2 FX6s and 2 CCAM 110s. I think the CCAM 110s are made by Shisei. Very good hang-on back filters. And of course the FX6s are very, very good filters. Battleships, really. But yeah, that would be plenty. That would be plenty. Do you have pre-filters? Are you using pre-filters, Brian? I'd be curious about that. GP, nitrates don't hurt cichlids as much as other species. What species would you say, GP? I mean, someone just commented on discus being at over 100 parts per million. I mean, what species would be the ones that you would really, really want to monitor the nitrate levels? Yeah, football, that actually is a very good comment. I was just reading football's comment, and there is a tremendous amount of truth to that. And if you, very often when we go in and mess too much with our aquariums, what we do is we throw off that very balance that you're talking about. And then you get some type of a spike, perhaps a shift in pH, perhaps a temporary jump in ammonia and nitrite, and then you have a problem. So it's a balancing act. And again, if you mess less with it, it tends to find its level. It will sort of find a level that is, is a good level, assuming that you're doing good fish care, good basic fish husbandry. And yes, there is that CO2, that CO2 comment is very important, because a lot of folks talk about the CO2 in the environment, but the truth is that CO2 is vital, and we're having like massive tree growth and massive growth on the planet, and it's being driven by CO2. So there is a very positive side to CO2, but it's been, for some reason, the whole concept of CO2 has been a little twisted and to some degree weaponized. So. It looks like we've gone over the hour. I tell you, when you're having fun. GP, your substrate is the key to keeping your tank going. Just have to do it right with a layered approach. I may have unintentionally, GP, unintentionally done that. I tried to replace this substrate with this river rock, but there was just so much sand that I ended up leaving a lot of the aragonite and black sand. I just left it. I left a few inches of it at the bottom because it was just too much to haul over to the new 300. And then I covered it. I capped it with this river rock, these pebbles, these large pebbles. And so I have this layer where the lower layer is quite possibly doing a little bit of anaerobic work for me. And when I do vacuum, I vacuum like half inch, no more than probably a half inch, just to get some of the waste that gets trapped in these rocks. But I thought about swapping this out and going to straight sand, but the tank has become pretty rock solid, pretty stable. I mean, one indication of that is, of course, the general health, color, and activity of the fish. But like these chocolate cichlids were a bit torn up from when I put the red tear in here, and the Salvini was attacking from the corner and doing all this crazy stuff. Their fins were shredded, and they healed in 5 days, like 5 days or so. Their fins were all sealed up. The shredding was gone, and they had complete fins again. So that to me is a real good sign of a healthy aquarium. Is how quickly they healed. Also, the clarity of the eyes. You look at the clarity of the eyes of the fish. That to me also tells me a little bit about water quality. And so I'm probably never going to change out this substrate, only because, like you say, GP, it is providing a very strong foundation to the aquarium. So I'm probably not going to be swapping that out. William, that's a plus. That's a big plus point, and I've talked about it in many videos. The idea of redundancy and backups. And yes, when I service my sun, I haven't touched the sump. When I service the sun isn't touched. So you do have that. But again, if you have a 6-inch substrate, that in a tank that's been running for a year or more, your tank is going to be very, very much more bulletproof. Probably to the point, I don't suggest you test this, but probably to the point where you could service all your filters at once, and you'd probably be okay rinsing the media with tap water. You'd probably be all right. I tend to go in the direction of caution, so I only service one at a time. That being said, I do use tap water when I rinse sponges. My tap water here is a little forgiving. I've got like zero, next to zero ammonium, zero nitrates, almost zero chlorine. Anyway, I've got great tap water. Probably because we have so much water here in Tennessee, which is so different from when I lived in California, where water was treated like it was gold. Whip's World mentions deep substrate plus planted. Now, that to me is the key to the most bulletproof. And my 55-gallon planted egg layer tank, I think, is gradually becoming that type of an aquarium where between the plants and the established, bio that's living in that, that ecosystem in the substrate and the plants, I'm ending up with a very, very steady, dependable, solid ecosystem. So yes, plants is the ideal. Now, of course, I can't put plants here because they would get absolutely destroyed. So my option would be maybe to put a plant light under the aquarium and throw some pothos and some plants in the sump, which is a possibility if you want to do that. Either aquatic plants or maybe things like pothos, which grow out, but whose roots pull nitrates and ammonia. Probably more importantly, pull ammonia out of the aquarium. TEW1970. Don't we all do that sometimes? I mean, I filmed that video on medicating the 90-gallon, and when I was editing the video, I realized that I hadn't plugged that one hang-on back filter back in because I was afraid I unplugged it because it would suck up all the medicated food, because that's where I was pouring in the food. So I'm editing the video and I go, oh, heck, I go back down. But again, the case for redundancy, the other hang-on back was running the whole time, so it didn't really have that much of an impact on the tank. But yeah, that happens. Fortunately, you did remember. Probably a good thing to do is, if you unplug things like that, is just, do a little alarm set on your phone for an hour from now. Did I plug things back in? Whip's World, I think that, you get these folks with these super heavily planted tanks, and, they have like 150 neons in there. Fish are getting trapped and dying back there, and they never get pulled out. I mean, there's just no way to find them. So they just decompose, and maybe they produce a little bit of, ammonia, and the ammonia is not enough to really create a lot of havoc, because so much plant life, it just gives the plants more food to absorb, and so that happens. All right. Well, I think we've gone over the hour. And there are some more great comments in here. And I'm sorry if I don't get to your comment. I'd like to get to as many as I can, but sometimes I can't. It doesn't mean I don't like you. Doesn't mean I was ignoring you. Every one of you is awesome. Every one of you rocks. You know that. So with that being said, I want to thank all of you for spending some time with me today. Thank you to my wonderful moderators. Thank you to my my garage gang, my members who are Patreon supporters. Be sure to check below the video for details on that. And thank you to those of you who super chatted. I hope I didn't miss super chats. And I think with that, we will go ahead and end off. You are the best. You rock. And I will see you again next week. And that's it for now. Thank you, my friends. See you again soon. Bye-bye.